Flight 427 began like any other red-eye departure from Los Angeles International Airport. Captain Michael Torres completed his pre-flight checklist with the same attention to detail that had kept him incident-free for 22 years. The Boeing 777 would carry 284 passengers to New York's JFK Airport, a routine overnight journey across the continent. Yet something felt different as passengers boarded that September evening. Perhaps it was the unseasonably warm weather, or maybe the recent security alerts that had put aviation personnel on edge. Whatever the reason, Captain Torres found himself studying the passenger manifest more carefully than usual. From which city in the world are you watching this story unfold today? If tales of courage and mystery intrigue you, please consider subscribing to join our community of storytellers and listeners. The cockpit door sealed shut as First Officer Sarah Chen settled into her seat beside him. At 34, she represented the new generation of aviators, sharp, technologically savvy, and unshakable under pressure. Together, they had flown this route dozens of times without incident. "Weather looks clear most of the way," Chen reported, scanning the meteorological data. "Should be smooth sailing after we clear the Rockies." Torres nodded, adjusting his headset. "Perfect night for flying. Maybe we can make up some time." Neither pilot paid special attention to the woman boarding with Group C, Seat 23A. She moved through the cabin like any other business traveler, carrying a simple black briefcase and wearing an unremarkable gray suit. Her dark hair was pulled back professionally, and she wore minimal jewelry. Nothing about her appearance suggested she was anything other than another executive heading to an early morning meeting in Manhattan. Her name was Elena Vasquez, though that identity was one of many she maintained. To casual observers, she appeared to be reviewing quarterly reports on her tablet as the aircraft prepared for departure. In reality, her trained eyes were cataloging every detail of her surroundings. The businessman in 22B kept checking his phone nervously. The elderly couple in 24A had matching luggage tags, but their accents didn't match their supposed hometown of Phoenix. Most concerning were the four men scattered throughout the cabin who seemed to be traveling separately but shared subtle behavioral patterns. They avoided eye contact with each other while maintaining peripheral awareness of each other's positions. Their carry-on bags were identical models but different colors. Each wore a watch on the same wrist, and each had positioned their belongings for quick access rather than storage. Elena had been tracking this particular cell for 18 months. Intelligence suggested they were planning something significant, but the exact target and timing had remained elusive. Now, 30,000 feet above the American Southwest, the pieces were falling into place. As Flight 427 reached cruising altitude, the cabin lights dimmed for the overnight journey. Most passengers settled into sleep or focused on personal entertainment systems. Elena appeared to doze, but her breathing remained controlled and her posture alert. Every 12 minutes, she would open her eyes slightly, scan the cabin, then return to apparent rest. The first indication of trouble came 3 hours into the flight. One of the four men she had been watching rose from his seat and walked toward the rear lavatory. 30 seconds later, another moved forward. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. Elena's eyes opened fully, though she kept her head positioned as if still sleeping. The third and fourth men moved simultaneously, producing items from their carry-on bags with practiced efficiency. In seconds, they had transformed from ordinary passengers into armed hijackers, their faces now covered with black masks. "Nobody move!" the tallest hijacker shouted, grabbing a flight attendant and pressing a weapon against her back. "Everyone stay in your seats!" Panic erupted throughout the cabin. A child began crying. Passengers who had been sleeping jerked awake in confusion and terror. A woman screamed, and several people instinctively ducked in their seats. "This aircraft is now under our control," announced the apparent leader, a thin man with piercing eyes visible through his mask. His accent was difficult to identify, but his English was precise. "Follow instructions, and no one needs to get hurt." In the cockpit, Captain Torres immediately activated the hijacking protocol. The reinforced door locked automatically, and he began transmitting the emergency transponder code while maintaining radio contact with air traffic control. "Los Angeles Center, this is Flight 427. We have a security situation in the cabin," Torres reported, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding behind him. First Officer Chen pulled up the cabin surveillance feed on their monitor system. The screens revealed a nightmare scenario. 4 armed men had taken strategic positions throughout the aircraft. Passengers were being ordered into groups, and flight attendants were being corralled toward the front galley. "Dear God," Chen whispered, watching the monitors in disbelief. That's when Torres noticed her. While passengers around her cowered or wept, the woman in 23A sat perfectly still. Not frozen with fear, but completely composed. Her breathing was measured, her eyes moving systematically as she assessed the situation with the detachment of a professional. "Sarah, look at seat 23A, Torres murmured, pointing at the monitor. Before Chen could respond, the cockpit communication system activated. A heavily accented voice came through the speakers. "Captain Torres, you will receive new flight coordinates momentarily. Any deviation from these instructions or attempt to contact authorities will result in passenger executions. Acknowledge immediately." Torres exchanged glances with Chen. Both understood the gravity of their situation, but protocol was clear. "This is Captain Torres. I acknowledge your instructions." In the main cabin, the hijackers were systematically confiscating phones and electronic devices. The leader, who appeared to be directing the operation, positioned himself where he could monitor both the passengers and the cockpit door. Torres would later learn his name was Malik Hassan, a former military officer turned extremist who had been planning this operation for over 2 years. "All communication devices in the collection bins," Malik commanded. "Anyone found concealing a phone will face immediate consequences."
Passengers complied with trembling hands, surrendering their devices. An older man attempted to slip his phone into his jacket pocket instead. One of the hijackers spotted the movement immediately and struck him across the shoulder with his weapon. The man crumpled with a cry of pain that sent fresh waves of terror through the cabin. Throughout this systematic intimidation, Torres kept his eyes on the woman in 23A. She surrendered an older model smartphone without resistance, but he noticed how she subtly repositioned herself to maintain sight lines to the emergency exits. Her posture suggested someone accustomed to evaluating tactical situations. "Flight 427, this is Los Angeles Center. We show you've deviated from your flight plan. Please confirm your status." Following established hijacking protocols, Torres had already entered the emergency code into their transponder. This would alert authorities to their situation without obviously signaling the hijackers. "Los Angeles Center, Flight 427, we're experiencing some instrument irregularities. Running diagnostics now." The coded language would be understood by air traffic control, who would immediately begin coordinating with federal authorities and military assets. Hassan had established communication with unknown contacts using sophisticated equipment that didn't match any standard aviation systems Torres recognized. The appearance appeared to be military-grade, suggesting these weren't random terrorists, but part of a larger, well-funded organization. "Initiate passenger sorting protocol," Hassan instructed his team through their communication system. What followed chilled Torres to his core. The hijackers began separating passengers by apparent nationality and ethnicity. Americans were directed to the left side of the cabin, foreign nationals to the right, with those of Middle Eastern or South Asian appearance forced into the center section. The sorting process created fresh panic as families were separated. Children cried for parents who were being forced to different sections. A young mother clutched her infant as she was pushed away from her husband. The emotional manipulation was clearly intentional, designed to maximize psychological pressure on both passengers and crew. Elena was directed to the American section. As she moved, Torres observed something interesting. For the first time since the hijacking began, she appeared to stumble slightly. Given her previous composed demeanor, the momentary loss of control seemed deliberate rather than accidental. One of the hijackers checking identification documents approached her. "Passport," he demanded roughly. She fumbled in her briefcase, extracting her documentation with hands that now appeared to shake slightly. When she handed over the passport, she dropped it. As both she and the hijacker bent to retrieve it, their heads came close together. Torres adjusted the camera angle, trying to better observe the interaction. He saw Alina's lips move slightly, forming words with minimal movement. The hijacker's posture stiffened momentarily before he straightened, returning her passport without the harsh treatment he'd shown other passengers. "Did you see that?" Torres asked Chen, rewinding the surveillance footage. "She said something to him," Chen confirmed. "Look at his reaction. Whatever she told him, it got his attention." Chen had been comparing the hijackers' faces against security bulletins stored in their system database. "The tall one by the emergency exit, I recognize him from intelligence reports. Malik Hassan. He's associated with a group called the Red Crescent Brigade. They're known for sophisticated, multi-phase operations." This wasn't a simple hijacking or random act of terror. The Red Crescent Brigade's operations typically involved complex objectives spanning multiple locations and time frames. Hassan moved to the center of the cabin, commanding everyone's attention. "Your government has been notified of our demands. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance ensures death." To emphasize his point, he fired a single warning shot into the cabin ceiling. The sharp crack sent passengers diving for cover, and several people began sobbing openly. In the chaos that followed, Torres kept his focus on Elena. While others flinched or covered their heads instinctively, she used the distraction to study the emergency exit mechanisms. Her eyes calculated distances between hijackers and potential escape routes. Her weight shifted forward onto the balls of her feet, a subtle preparation for movement. The aircraft continued on its diverted course while air traffic control coordinated with federal authorities. Military interceptors would be scrambling to track them at a safe distance, ready to respond if the situation deteriorated further. Hassan's voice cut through the frightened murmurs of passengers. "To demonstrate our seriousness, we require a volunteer." He scanned the cabin before pointing to a young woman in business attire. "You! Stand up. Come here." The woman rose on trembling legs. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I have children at home." "Your government needs motivation to take our demands seriously," Hassan replied coldly, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the front of the aircraft. As the terrified woman was dragged forward, Torres observed Elena's reaction through the monitor. Her composed mask slipped slightly, revealing something harder underneath. The muscles in her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Torres found himself leaning closer to the screen, unable to look away. Every instinct told him something was about to happen, though he couldn't imagine what one unarmed passenger could do against 4 trained terrorists. The woman Hassan had selected was now standing at the front of the cabin, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded quietly for her life. The other passengers watched in horrified silence, many closing their eyes rather than witness what might come next.
Hassan raised his weapon, and in that moment of absolute terror, Elena Vasquez made her move. What happened next would be analyzed by security experts for years to come, frame by frame, as an example of precision training meeting split-second opportunity. Elena moved with liquid efficiency that seemed to defy physics. In one fluid motion, she grasped a water bottle from the hijacker nearest to her, used it as leverage to hyperextend his wrist while simultaneously striking a pressure point at the base of his neck. The man collapsed silently before anyone realized what had occurred. Before the other hijackers could process what was happening, she had already secured his weapon and neutralized a second terrorist with clinical precision. A targeted strike to the solar plexus, followed immediately by an elbow to the temple as he doubled over. Both attacks were executed with such speed that most passengers didn't even see them happen. The cabin fell into stunned silence. For several heartbeats, no one moved. Not passengers, not flight attendants, not the remaining hijackers. Reality seemed suspended in disbelief. Then Hassan released his hostage, who collapsed to the floor and barked urgent commands to his remaining associate. They retreated toward the rear galley, using 3 passengers as human shields. "Everyone stay down," Elena commanded, her voice transformed from its previous quiet tone to one clearly accustomed to authority.
Heads down, hands over your necks. Do not look up." In the cockpit, Torres and Chen stared at the monitors in complete shock. "What just happened?" Chen whispered. "I have absolutely no idea, but whoever she is, she's definitely not an ordinary passenger." The cabin phone rang. Torres hesitated before answering, protocol warring with curiosity. "Captain Torres, this is Agent Elena Vasquez, Federal Counterterrorism Division. Authorization code Bravo 77 Whiskey Alpha. Your aircraft has been targeted as part of a larger coordinated operation. I need immediate cockpit access." Torres looked at Chen, who was already inputting the authorization code into their secure verification system. The silence stretched as they waited for confirmation. "Captain," Chen said finally, her voice tight with disbelief, "the code authenticates as Counterterrorism Division, but according to our database, Agent Elena Vasquez was killed in action 6 months ago in Beirut. Her operational status shows deceased." Through the monitor, they watched Elena's expression shift slightly. A brief flicker of understanding crossed her features. "I've been operating under deep cover since the bombing in Lebanon. Only Deputy Director Morrison knows my actual status. There's been a security breach in federal intelligence. That's why my death had to be staged." While maintaining eye contact with the camera, she picked up the hijacker's communication device. Without warning, she transmitted a message on their frequency. "Hassan, do you remember Damascus? Your brother made the same mistake you're making now, trusting the wrong people." From the rear of the aircraft, Hassan's voice crackled through the device. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "You know exactly who this is. The agent you were told died in the embassy bombing. Vasquez died in Beirut, Hassan. That's what Phoenix Group wanted you to believe." Hassan's composure visibly fractured. "Vasquez died in Lebanon. We confirmed the kill." "That's what Phoenix Group needed you to think," Elena stated. "They're using you, Hassan. The coordinates they provided, the target location, it's all part of their cleanup operation. They're eliminating loose ends, and you're one of them." The exchange confirmed her identity more effectively than any authorization code could. Torres watched Hassan's reaction through the cameras, a mixture of shock and growing suspicion. "Sarah, establish secure communication with Federal Command. We need verification of this situation immediately." While Chen worked to establish encrypted contact with authorities, Torres maintained visual surveillance of Elena through the monitor system. Her behavior patterns, her tactical awareness, her precise neutralization of trained terrorists all pointed to someone with extensive specialized training. "How do you know you're not manipulating me?" Hassan called out from his position in the rear galley. "The scar on your brother Amir's left hand. He got it from shrapnel during the checkpoint incident in Aleppo. You were there when it happened. You're the one who bandaged it with your shirt."
Hassan's eyes widened behind his mask. This was information no intelligence file would contain, details only someone who had been present could know. The secure communication channel crackled to life. "Flight 427, this is Federal Command Authority. Authentication protocol confirmed. Agent status classified level Obsidian. Captain Torres, you are authorized to implement Emergency Protocol 9 at your discretion." Torres had never heard of Emergency Protocol 9, but Chen was already pulling up the reference in their security manual. What she found made her face pale. "Mike," she said quietly, using his first name for the first time in their professional relationship. "Protocol 9 authorizes cockpit access for verified federal agents during active terrorist situations. It's never been implemented on a commercial flight." The weight of the decision pressed down on Torres. Everything in his training screamed against opening the cockpit door during a hijacking. Yet the authentication codes were valid, and Elena had already demonstrated capabilities far beyond any ordinary passenger. If she wanted to harm us, Torres reasoned, she wouldn't need cockpit access to do it. She just took down 2 armed terrorists with her bare hands. He began entering the complex series of commands that would allow single-person access through the reinforced cockpit door. Agent Vasquez. I'm implementing Protocol 9. You have 30 seconds for entry. The door unlocked with a soft electronic chime. Elena slipped inside quickly, securing the door behind her with movements that suggested familiarity with aircraft systems. Up close, Torres could see details the cameras hadn't captured. A barely visible scar along her hairline, eyes that seemed to constantly evaluate angles and distances, even in the confined cockpit space. The way she unconsciously positioned herself to maintain visual access to both the door and the control panels. Captain Torres, First Officer Chen, thank you for trusting me. I'm still not entirely sure I do, Torres admitted honestly, but I'd like to understand what's happening to my aircraft and my passengers. Elena moved to the navigation console without requesting permission, her fingers flying over the controls with practiced familiarity. 4 months ago, Federal intelligence identified a pattern suggesting coordinated attacks on multiple transportation hubs. Not random terrorism, but strategic disruption designed to cripple commerce and create maximum economic impact. She pulled up their current flight path on the display. These coordinates Hassan received don't lead to any legitimate airfield. According to satellite reconnaissance, there's a strike team already positioned at the target location. This isn't a hijacking for ransom or political statement, it's the opening move in a much larger operation. What kind of operation? Chen asked. Phoenix Group specializes in manufactured chaos. They create crises, then profit from the economic disruption that follows. Short airline stocks, invest in security companies, manipulate oil futures. They make billions while people die. Torres studied the navigation display, trying to understand the implications. Why eliminate their own operatives? Because Hassan and his team know too much about the larger plan. After they complete their part, they become liabilities. A missile strike on the landing site eliminates all witnesses and creates an international incident that diverts security resources from Phoenix Group's real targets. She turned to face Torres directly. Captain, what I'm about to ask will put everyone on this aircraft at risk, but it's the only way to prevent thousands of casualties. Torres had faced mechanical failures, medical emergencies, and severe weather in his career, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was being asked to trust a woman who, according to official records, shouldn't even exist. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. We convince Hassan that we're following his instructions while actually changing course to Naval Air Station Pensacola. It's the closest secure facility capable of handling this situation. That's a significant course change. The hijackers will notice immediately. Not if we manipulate the cabin navigation displays. Commercial systems have override capabilities for exactly this type of situation. Torres knew she was correct. The system could display false information to passengers while maintaining accurate navigation for the flight crew. It was a feature designed for emergency situations exactly like this. And what about Hassan and his remaining associate? He asked. I need to convince him that Phoenix Group has betrayed him. With your permission, I'd like to return to the cabin and attempt negotiation. That's incredibly dangerous, Torres objected. I've spent 6 months infiltrating Phoenix Group's network. I have information about Hassan's family, evidence of Phoenix Group's true intentions. He's a terrorist, but he's also a man who believes he's fighting for justice. When he realizes he's been manipulated, negotiation becomes possible. Torres weighed their options. Following standard protocol meant continuing toward the coordinates while hoping military intervention could prevent disaster. Trusting Elena meant violating every regulation in aviation security, but potentially saving everyone aboard. The aircraft continued through the night sky, carrying its deadly cargo of passengers, hijackers, and at least one federal agent, toward an uncertain resolution. In a few minutes, Torres would have to make a decision that would determine whether 284 people lived or died. And in the rear galley, Hassan was beginning to suspect that his carefully planned operation was unraveling in ways he never could have imagined.
Torres made his decision. "Initiate the course change," he instructed Chen. "Modify the cabin displays to show our original heading." As Chen worked the controls, Elena prepared to return to the cabin. "Captain, I'll need the emergency medical kit, specifically the sedative injectors." "Those are for extreme medical emergencies," Torres said. "This qualifies," Elena replied simply. Torres retrieved the requested items. Before leaving, Elena paused at the cockpit door. "If something happens to me, continue to Pensacola. Military response will handle the rest. And Captain, some missions succeed precisely because the world never knows they happened." She slipped back into the cabin, leaving Torres to monitor through the cameras. Elena approached the passenger section with deliberate, non-threatening movements. "Hassan, I have information you need to hear. I'm coming back unarmed." "Stop right there," Hassan commanded, his weapon trained on a hostage. "No closer." Elena remained 10 feet away. "Check your secure frequency. You should be receiving data now." Suspicious but curious, Hassan's associate verified their device. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion. "That's a live satellite feed of the landing coordinates Phoenix Group provided," Elena stated calmly. "Count the armed positions in the surrounding area, at least 15 thermal signatures. They're not there to help you refuel, Hassan. They're there to eliminate witnesses." The terrorist leader's composure cracked. "You're lying. I saw the bodies." "You saw what Phoenix Group wanted you to see. The bracelet Amira always wears, the one with the silver butterfly charm you gave her for her 6th birthday. Phoenix Group photographed her wearing it 3 days ago." Hassan's hand trembled slightly on his weapon. This could be fabricated. "Your wife Lila and your daughter Amira, Phoenix Group relocated them to a safe house in Morocco after telling you they died in the market bombing. They're alive, Hassan. They're being held as insurance to ensure you complete this mission and die doing it." The terrorist leader's composure cracked. "You're lying. I saw the bodies." "You saw what Phoenix Group wanted you to see. The bracelet Amira always wears, the one with the silver butterfly charm you gave her for her 6th birthday. Phoenix Group photographed her wearing it 3 days ago." Hassan's hand lowered slightly. This was information no intelligence agency should possess. Torres held his breath as he watched the negotiation unfold through the monitors. The entire cabin remained silent, passengers barely daring to move. "They're using you, Hassan," Elena pressed. "Your family survives only if you stand down. This aircraft is already changing course to a secure facility where your wife and daughter can be safely extracted." Hassan's associate checked the navigation data, then looked up with alarm. "The heading doesn't match our target coordinates." "Because I'm trying to keep everyone alive, including you and your family." For nearly 2 minutes, Hassan stood frozen in indecision. Then slowly, deliberately, he lowered his weapon completely. "Tell the pilot to land safely," he said quietly. "No more death today. Place your weapon on the floor and move to seats 32A and 32B, hands on your heads." As the men complied, a collective exhale seemed to pass through the cabin. The immediate danger had passed. Elena secured the weapons and contacted the cockpit. "Captain, situation contained. 2 subjects in custody. Request immediate medical assistance upon landing." "Understood," Torres replied. "Military escort has joined our position, beginning descent to Pensacola in 12 minutes." The landing proceeded smoothly. As they touched down on the military runway, emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft. Specialized response teams boarded swiftly, securing the terrorists and beginning passenger evacuation. In the controlled chaos of the aftermath, Torres lost sight of Elena on the monitors. When he finally emerged from the cockpit after shutdown procedures, she had vanished completely. A military officer approached him. "Colonel Torres, I'm Colonel Davidson. We need immediate debriefing." "There was an agent, Elena Vasquez. She resolved the situation. Colonel Davidson's expression remained neutral. All passengers are being processed. Please follow me. The debriefing lasted 6 hours. Torres recounted every detail while intelligence officers took careful notes. He noticed how they reacted whenever Elena's name was mentioned, subtle shifts and exchanged glances that suggested classified knowledge. This agent you described, did she indicate her next assignment or location?
No, Torres replied. She said some missions succeed because the world never knows about them. 3 weeks later, Torres received a commendation at a private ceremony attended by airline executives and select government officials. News reports described how a skilled pilot had diverted to a military facility after security concerns were raised, with brief mentions of an incident successfully resolved. Internet forums buzzed with passenger accounts of a mysterious woman who had somehow disappeared before authorities arrived. The conspiracy theories multiplied daily. Torres accepted the recognition graciously, but something had changed inside him. The weight of the untold story lingered. He began considering early retirement, his passion for flying dimmed by the secrets he now carried. 2 months after the incident, while reviewing his flight documents at home, Torres discovered something unusual. A small encrypted data card had been carefully placed inside his logbook. That evening, he used a decryption key that had been anonymously mailed to his home address. The card contained a single video file. The footage showed Elena in various locations and disguises, systematically dismantling Phoenix Group operations, meeting informants in Istanbul, photographing evidence in Singapore, extracting Hassan's family from their guarded location in Morocco. The final segment showed her presenting classified evidence to a closed International Security Council, her identity concealed, revealing the full extent of Phoenix Group's infiltration. A text document accompanied the video. Captain Torres, your trust saved 284 passengers and prevented a coordinated attack that would have killed thousands across 3 continents. Phoenix Group has been dismantled. 17 compromised officials have been identified and removed from positions of power. Some victories happen in silence, so the world never knows it was in danger. Thank you for your part in this one. Destroy this card after viewing. Torres complied, but the knowledge changed him permanently. 6 months later, having taken early retirement, Torres relocated to a coastal town in Portugal. One morning, while sitting at a harbor cafe, he noticed a woman at a nearby table. Her hair was different, styled in a short cut and colored lighter. She wore casual tourist clothing and sunglasses. But when she briefly removed the sunglasses to check her phone, Torres recognized those eyes, the same calculating, aware gaze he had observed through the cabin cameras. He made no move to approach her, understanding instinctively that acknowledgement would be unwelcome. When she departed, she left a newspaper on her table. Inside was an envelope containing documents about emerging security threats and a handwritten note. Some fights continue long after everyone else goes home. The world doesn't know what you did, Captain Torres, but those of us in the shadows do. Enjoy your retirement. You've earned your peace. Torres watched the harbor where she had vanished, finally understanding something most people never comprehend: that ordinary-looking people sometimes carry extraordinary responsibilities, fighting invisible battles in airports, on streets, aboard aircraft, moving among us unremarkably until crisis demands otherwise. He ordered another coffee and began reading the documents, knowing exactly which authorities needed to receive them. His retirement, it seemed, would involve a different kind of service. Somewhere across the harbor, a woman with lighter hair entered a different cafe,
ordered an espresso, and began reviewing intelligence reports for her next assignment. Flight 427 had been saved. Phoenix Group had been dismantled. But the work of protecting the unsuspecting world continued, silent and unacknowledged, carried out by guardians who would never receive parades or public recognition. And perhaps, Torres reflected as he watched the boats in the harbor, that was exactly how it should be. Some heroes work best in the shadows, their greatest achievement being that the world never knows how close it came to disaster. The morning sun reflected off the water, and somewhere in the distance another story was beginning, another crisis being quietly prevented, another guardian moving unseen through the crowd. The world remained safe, one secret mission at a time.